It is now, when we are called as witnesses of the world, to mend it, to change its course, to restore it. It is now when we are called to act on our values, not to hide, not to fear, but to be bold and loud. It is now that we are called to continue our fight for justice, to organize, to speak up. It is now. Let us gather. Let us give each other courage. At this time, we have an opportunity to light our candles of community on the back table. You can light a candle for a joy or a concern or simply to bring more light into our room.
When I was a boy each week, Sunday we would go to church, pay attention to the priest, and he would read the holy word, and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is, everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. And when I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad, miracles don't happen still. Now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, better magic trick, said anything is here at all. So challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, to find him where there isn't one. When holy water wasn't rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips. Now I have to hold my breath, like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's circuit rain hand me down, but I walk into the river in there, 'cause everything is holy now. Questioning Chinese face, say it's not a testament, that'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament, I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. Used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now.
Let's stand in body or spirit for our chalice lighting, our spoken affirmation, and the lighting of the peace candle. The chalice we light today is a symbol of our faith. It binds us together as one people, a reminder that our strength is in our shared hope for the world, and that our common work is the creation of beloved community among ourselves and in the world. Let us join together in the spoken affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another. We light this peace candle to remind us of all the places in the world where there is no peace. Join me in saying the words on the screen. Lead me from death to life, from falsehood to truth. Lead me from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead me from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts, our world, our universe. May be seated. Our opening thought. I drive by the birthplace of Dwight D. Eisenhower every time I come here. So sometimes I feel compelled to bring something from Dwight D. Eisenhower. So our opening thought comes from Dwight D. Eisenhower. Hear these words. Though force can protect an emergency, only justice, fairness, consideration, and cooperation can finally lead humanity to the dawn of eternal peace.
Oh
Our next reading comes from Albert Einstein from Living Philosophies. Strange is our situation here upon earth. Each of us comes for a short visit, not knowing why, yet sometimes seeming to a divine purpose. From the standpoint of daily life, however, there is one thing we do know, that we are here for the sake of other persons, above all for those upon whose smile and well-being our own happiness depends, for the countless unknown souls with whose fate we are connected by a bond of sympathy. Many times a day, I realize how much my outer and inner life is built upon the labors of people, both living and dead, and how earnestly I must exert myself in order to give in return as much as I have received and am still receiving. For our time of meditation this morning, we'll be hearing the words from Richard Gilbert, to savor the world or save it. Let us breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. I rise in the morning, torn between the desire to save the world or to savor it, to serve life or to enjoy it. To savor the sweet taste of my own joy or to share the bitter cup of my neighbor. To celebrate life with exuberant step or to struggle for the life of the heavy laden. What am I to do when the guilt at my bounty clouds the sky of my vision, when the glow which lights my every day illumines the hurting world around me? To savor the world or save it? God of justice, if such there be, take from me the burden of my question. Let me praise my plenitude without limit. Let me cast from my eyes all troubled folk. No, you will not let me be. You will not stop my ears to the cries of the hurt and the hungry. You will not close my eyes to the sight of the afflicted. What is that you say? To save, one must serve. To savor, one must save. The one will not stand without the other. Forgive me in my preoccupation with myself. In my concern for my own life, I had forgotten. Forgive me, God of justice, forgive me and make me whole. Our next reading comes from Anne Applebaum from her work, Twilight of Democracy, The Seductive Lure of Authoritarianism. She writes, "It is possible that we are already living through the twilight of democracy, that our civilization may already be heading for anarchy or tyranny, as the ancient philosophers and America's founders once feared, that a new generation of clerks, the advocates of illiberal or authoritarian ideas, will come to power in the 21st century, just as they did in the 20th, that their visions of the world, born of resentment, anger, or deep messianic dreams, could triumph. Maybe new information technology will continue to undermine consensus, divide people further, and increase polarization until only violence can determine who rules."
Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple's place, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual works of love.
In a lot of congregations this morning, churches around the country, there are flags flying. The Pledge of Allegiance is being said. In some churches, even the national anthem is being sung today. In many churches, God Bless America, some other kind of patriotic hymns are being sung as well. Oftentimes, this Sunday or the next Sunday is used in churches as a kind of 4th of July celebration. I usually do something different on Sundays near 4th of July. I take it as a time to reflect critically, yet also hopefully, on our existence as a community, as a nation. And so as we reflect on our existence as a nation, I think it's critical that we move beyond the hubris, the pride, and the racism of an America First mentality. An America First mentality is something that has been talked about quite a bit over the past few years. And instead of moving in that direction of an America First mentality, which I'm going to get into the details of that here in a moment, I think we should instead be asking ourselves what our country, what our nation can do to contribute to a beloved community first mentality, a beloved community throughout the world. Today we hear an increasing number of politicians who openly refer to themselves as America First politicians. Many of these America First politicians openly embrace Christian nationalism. And we have been seeing some very extreme expressions of Christian nationalism just in the last few weeks, with unconstitutional attempts to require Bibles and the Ten Commandments in public school classrooms, and in Oklahoma to require teaching from the Bible, with not any really instructions about how that's going to happen in the near future. But it's going to be required. Bibles and the Ten Commandments required in every public school classroom. Now, the founders of the United States, they were deeply flawed We all know that. But they did get some things right. And two of those things were the constitutional protection of religious freedom and the constitutional prohibition of government-established religion. Both of these things are found in the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. The founders knew that millions of lives were lost in the religious wars in Europe. That's not an exaggeration. Millions of lives were lost in the religious wars in Europe. They knew that the oppression of religious minorities was also a significant factor in why many people left Europe to come to America. The efforts to require the Bible and Ten Commandments in public schools are a direct threat to a system that has served us well by protecting religious freedom, which also includes the freedom not to be religious. Unfortunately, the America First movement and Christian nationalists are failing to heed the wisdom of our founders when it comes to the non-establishment of religion and religious freedom. To understand how we've gotten to where we are today, to understand the America First movement of today and the Christian nationalism that is often a part of it, it's helpful to look at the origins of the slogan of this movement in the 1930s. The America First movement took on the name and slogan America First in the late 1930s. And its most prominent spokesperson for the America First Committee was Charles Lindbergh, a white supremacist, anti-Semite, and Nazi sympathizer who argued for the United States to take a neutral position on the war in Europe. He also happened to be the first person to successfully complete a transatlantic flight, a feat which gave him international fame and, unfortunately, a platform for his extremely racist views. Lindbergh represented the America First Committee at a rally in Madison Square Garden in October 1941, which is now known as the infamous Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden. And Lindbergh was photographed at that rally with a U.S. Senator on his right and a well-known author of the time on his left, all three of them giving the Nazi salute. Lindbergh also spoke and wrote about what he called the importance of protecting the European blood of the American people. And in 1938, he received the Service Cross of the German Eagle directly from Hermann Göring just a few weeks before Kristallnacht. The original America First movement was white, Christian, they identified as Christian at least, racist, nationalist, and open to authoritarianism. And many of its members saw what Hitler was doing in Germany in the 1930s as a model for what could happen in the United States. And they worked very hard to keep the United States from intervening in the war in Europe. The America First movement of the late 1930s and early 1940s is stunningly and shockingly similar to the America First movement today, which is difficult to fully take in given how much sacrifice was made by so many to eliminate the threat of fascism during World War II. Today's America Firsters are also predominantly white. They identify openly as Christian nationalists, and they are drawn to authoritarian leaders both at home and abroad, who they think are working to protect their interests by any means necessary. And they like the fact that they will use any means necessary. They see authoritarian leaders like Vladimir Putin and Viktor Orban as models and partners in the protection of their religious and ethno-cultural interests. Like fascist movements of the past, they seek to control the content of the education of youth so that they are only exposed to a positive framing of their Christian nationalist America First views. Many in the ranks of the contemporary America First movement are simply pawns who are being used. They're being used by oligarchs who have the real power, but given their economic desperation, they are extremely prone to manipulation and propaganda. And this propaganda promises to fix all of the ways that they perceive themselves to have been wronged. And like in fascist movements of the past, they are offered scapegoats. They are offered scapegoats to blame for all of the problems they experience. It's the immigrants' fault. It's the Muslims. It's the gays. It's the feminists. It's the trans persons. It's the media. It's the college professors. Oops. It's the Hollywood elite. An almost unending list of persons to blame who are then otherized and dehumanized. If we could only deport them, if we could only get them out of the country in some other way or maybe lock them up, all will be well, they are told. But the urgent challenges of our world will not be solved by an America First mentality. They will not be solved by isolationism or nationalism, and they certainly will not be solved by fascism. Blaming others, scapegoating others, that will not improve our economy or lift people out of poverty. Withdrawing from global environmental agreements will not solve the climate crisis or contribute to the health and well-being of all life on Earth. In fact, we know it will do just the opposite. The promise of the America First movement that if we simply focus on one set of ethno-cultural interests, that we can be great again, is a false promise. It fails to see the realities of who we are as a diverse and pluralistic humanity. It fails to see us as all interconnected, with problems and challenges that are not confined by national borders, that are not confined by narrow national interests. The America First movement points us precisely in the opposite direction of where we need to be going in the human community. It sees our power and interests as only being preserved by diminishing the power and interests of those who we see as being different than us. It mistakenly sees the power gained through competition as being greater than the power gained through cooperation, as greater than the power being gained through collaboration. It fails to see the reality in nature that we don't really live in a zero-sum gain world of the survival of the fittest, but rather in a world of survival of those who are able to work together and cooperate together for the flourishing of all life. We see this in nature. We see this in evolution. It's really not survival of the fittest that leads to flourishing ecosystems. It's actually collaboration, cooperation, life finding ways to live together and work together. Not that there's no competition, but it's more collaboration and cooperation than we first thought. The way forward to human flourishing, the way forward to ecological flourishing is definitely not the way of America First. It's the way of beloved community. It's a way in which we all humble ourselves and see that all persons have sacred value and recognize that we ultimately diminish ourselves. We ultimately diminish ourselves when we diminish the value of others. So when you hear politicians or other persons saying that they are America first, remember those beginnings of the America First movement in the 1930s. But we know that actually the 1930s were not the beginning of the America First movement. The 1930s were not the beginning of Christian nationalism. The persons who were drawn to the America First movement of the 1930s had been drawn to other movements before that, which were just as racist, just as nationalist, just as negative for the well-being of humanity as the America First movement was. It was just during that time in the 1930s that it got linked up to what was happening in Europe, that it got linked up to the authoritarianism and fascism that we saw in Germany and Italy and in other places. And today, we see that unfortunate connection again, that the America First folks are looking to the autocrats, that the America First folks are looking to the authoritarians to fix it for them, to make things great again. But let's all remember what great again really is. It wasn't great for all of us. It wasn't great for humanity as a whole. It certainly wasn't great for the earth as a whole. It was great for a small few. And even then, it wasn't really great for them. They thought it was, but it wasn't really what true humanity, the fullness of humanity within beloved community, ought to be. And so as we reflect on the values of our nation, the values of our country, let's realize that humility and the sacred value of all lead us away from the America First mentality towards a life of love in beloved community. At this time, we have an opportunity to give our offering. You can either do that at the table, or also there are opportunities to give online.
So
Let's stand in body or spirit for the parting thought and extinguishing the chalice. Our parting thought comes from William Barber, from his book, Forward Together, A Moral Message for the Nation. When the forces of extremism become so overwhelming that they depress the hope of the people, the prophetic voice and mission is to connect words and actions in ways that build restorative hope, so a movement for restorative justice can arise. Let us extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.